The beginning of Iran's nuclear program during the 1990s represented the logical conclusion of Iranian strategic thinking about deterrence and survival in a hostile international environment. Iranian leaders viewed nuclear weapons as the ultimate guarantee against foreign aggression and the only reliable method for ensuring national independence. American sanctions against Iran increased throughout the 1990s as the United States attempted to pressure Iran into abandoning its nuclear program and ending support for regional proxy forces. These sanctions created economic hardship while reinforcing Iranian perceptions that the United States sought to weaken and ultimately destroy the Islamic Republic through economic warfare. The combination of military humiliation, economic pressure, and regional threats convinced Iranian leadership that nuclear weapons represented their only reliable guarantee of national survival and independence in an international system dominated by American power. By the early 2000s, Iran's nuclear ambitions would soon attract international attention in ways that would transform the Islamic Republic from a regional concern into a global threat. The nuclear crisis and modern confrontation. The revelation of Iran's secret nuclear facilities in 2002 sent shockwaves through the international community and marked the beginning of the most dangerous phase in American-Iranian relations. Iranian opposition groups disclosed the existence of previously unknown uranium enrichment facilities at Natanz and a heavy water reactor under construction at Iraq that had been built without International Atomic Energy Agency oversight or approval. These discoveries proved that Iran had been conducting clandestine nuclear activities for nearly 2 decades, while publicly claiming its nuclear program served only peaceful purposes. The scale and sophistication of the hidden facilities demonstrated Iran's determination to develop nuclear capabilities despite international sanctions and diplomatic pressure. President George W. Bush's inclusion of Iran in the axis of evil during his January 2002 State of the Union address fundamentally altered Iranian calculations about nuclear weapons development and regional security. Bush's speech grouped Iran with Iraq and North Korea as nations that posed existential threats to American interests through their pursuit of weapons of mass destruction and support for international terrorism. The designation came just months after Iranian cooperation with American forces during the invasion of Afghanistan, ending secret diplomatic channels that had shown promise for improving bilateral relations. Iranian leaders interpreted the axis of evil speech as confirmation that the United States viewed the Islamic Republic as an enemy that would eventually face American military action regardless of Iranian behavior. The American invasion of Iraq in March 2003 provided Iranian strategists with a terrifying preview of what awaited nations that lacked nuclear deterrent capabilities when they conflicted with American interests. The swift destruction of Saddam Hussein's conventional military forces demonstrated that even well-equipped regional armies could not resist American technological superiority and precision warfare capabilities. Iranian officials observed that Iraq's alleged weapons of mass destruction programs had been used to justify the invasion, while North Korea's actual nuclear weapons had provided that country with immunity from American attack. The lesson appeared clear to Iranian leadership that nuclear weapons represented the only reliable guarantee against American military intervention. The acceleration of Iran's nuclear program following the Iraq invasion reflected the regime's conviction that survival required nuclear deterrent capabilities as quickly as possible. Iranian engineers rapidly expanded uranium enrichment activities at Natanz while beginning construction of additional facilities that could support a comprehensive nuclear weapons program. The Islamic Republic also initiated development of ballistic missile systems capable of delivering nuclear warheads to targets throughout the Middle East and beyond. These parallel programs created the technical foundation for nuclear weapons production while providing Iran with negotiating leverage in diplomatic efforts. International negotiations to limit Iran's nuclear program consumed more than a decade as the United States, European Union, Russia, and China attempted to find diplomatic solutions that would satisfy Iranian security concerns while preventing nuclear weapons proliferation. The complexity of these discussions reflected fundamental disagreements about Iran's right to nuclear technology the scope of international oversight required, and the relationship between sanctions relief and nuclear restrictions. Multiple rounds of talks collapsed over Iranian insistence on maintaining enrichment capabilities versus Western demands for complete suspension of all nuclear activities that could contribute to weapons development. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action signed in 2015 represented the most significant diplomatic achievement in American-Iranian relations since the 1979 revolution. The agreement required Iran to reduce its uranium stockpiles by 98%, limit enrichment to levels far below weapons-grade concentrations, and accept unprecedented international monitoring of its nuclear facilities. In exchange, the United States and international community agreed to lift sanctions that had crippled Iran's economy while providing the Islamic Republic with access to frozen assets worth over $100 billion. The deal increased Iran's theoretical breakout time for nuclear weapons development from weeks to approximately 1 year. President Trump's withdrawal from the nuclear agreement in May 2018 shattered the diplomatic framework that had prevented Iranian nuclear weapons development while imposing the harshest economic sanctions in the country's history. The Trump administration's maximum pressure campaign aimed to force Iran into negotiations for a more comprehensive agreement that would address ballistic missile development and regional proxy activities in addition to nuclear issues. However, Iranian leaders viewed the American withdrawal as evidence that the United States could not be trusted to honor diplomatic commitments, making future negotiations significantly more difficult to achieve. Iran's systematic violation of nuclear deal restrictions following American withdrawal demonstrated the Islamic Republic's determination to use nuclear leverage for political and economic concessions. Iranian engineers began enriching uranium to 20% concentration while accumulating stockpiles that exceeded agreement limits by more than 10 times. The country also resumed development of advanced centrifuge technology that could dramatically reduce the time required for weapons-grade uranium production. These violations created international pressure for renewed diplomatic engagement while raising alarms about Iran's proximity to nuclear weapons capability. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani at Baghdad International Airport on January 3, 2020, brought the United States and Iran closer to full-scale warfare than at any point since the 1979 revolution. The targeted killing of Iran's most important military commander represented an unprecedented escalation that Iranian leaders could not ignore without appearing weak to domestic and regional audiences. Iran's missile retaliation against American bases in Iraq marked the first direct Iranian military attack on American forces since the 1979 revolution and came within hours of triggering broader conflict between the two countries. Recent developments in 2025 have demonstrated that the nuclear crisis remains unresolved and potentially more dangerous than ever before. Iran has advanced its uranium enrichment to 60% concentration, just steps away from the 90% level required for nuclear weapons production. Iranian officials have begun making explicit threats about nuclear weapons development, while military commanders allegedly recommend preemptive strikes against American bases in the region. These escalating tensions reveal how decades of accumulated grievances and strategic miscalculations have created a confrontation that extends far beyond the immediate nuclear issue to encompass fundamental questions about power, sovereignty, and survival